This podcast contains discussion around depression and suicide. If you're experiencing feelings of sadness, depression, or thoughts of self-harm, stop and seek help now. There is someone waiting to talk to you right now on Lifeline's crisis hotline, 13 11 14, or call 000.
This podcast may also contain unintentional coarse language and political incorrectness.
Welcome to the final episode of Season 3 of You Wouldn't Be Dead for Quids. In this series, we've been taking a closer look at the work of Dr. Kelly Turner and her book Radical Remission, Surviving Cancer Against All Odds. We have Graham, who is not only a Schitt's Creek tour guide but a Radical Remission coach, who has studied Kelly Turner's Radical Remission project and is part of a group of dedicated coaches who are assisting people to put these factors, these 10 factors that they've found, into practice. Now, if you've just found this podcast and haven't listened to episodes 1 to 5, I would highly recommend that you listen to those first. Well, I guess you don't have to. They're all as important as one another, but certainly have a listen to the others. I'm Ruth Geis, and this is Graham Cotter. How are you doing, Graham?
Wouldn't be dead for quids, Ruth.
Good stuff. Let's get straight into it. Now, as soon as I saw social support, and I think I mentioned at the end of episode 5, when I saw social support as one of the factors, it brought up a picture of my dad. Now, if you'd have said to him, Dad, social support is really important, I reckon he would have been something like, I don't need any bloody do-gooders or listening to people pitying me. You know, it's not something that he would naturally seek out. And I think, you know, I've known people with cancer. Some people really pull away from social support.
I guess, you know, it's an individual thing, Ruth. But
because what does social support actually mean?
Well, social support means, you know, not only the obvious where, you know, the physical support, but also, you know, it's that connection. And some of the examples in the book where, you know, neighbours rallying around and providing, you know, helping cook meals and those sorts of things. And not only neighbours but family and those sorts of things. And they're critically important. That for me personally, if I'm not well, you know, I would just withdraw and sort of like
that
like
seems
a wounded
the
animal.
Natural thing to do.
Yeah. But by the same token, you know, with, you know, cancer and is a journey where, you know, it's a long extended journey in lots of instances. So, you know, you really can't withdraw for that period of time. And when you realise that, you know, that social support comes in many forms and you need to embrace it, you know, like family, friends, you know, even your pets, members of your healing team, you know, like me to say, I know, for example, when I was having the chemo for the bowel cancer all those years ago, you know, I used to refer to the nurses in that oncology section there as angels without wings. And
Yes.
They were an amazing sport, not only, you know, and how they every day, every time you went there, they were the same caring, happy, cheery people, and you know, and you knew, you know, the bloke sitting next to you probably wasn't going to be there next week, you know. So,
Wow.
but they, you know, they it was you know, it was pretty amazing. You know, there's also you know, your community, you know, spiritual community, if you're a member of a church group or whatever, and hobby groups and those sorts of things. You know, it's just surrounding yourself with other people and groups and those sorts of things just to just helps build your immunity. It's, you know, sort of like that positive emotion thing, you know, like I mean to say.
And the interesting thing is people want to help. People want to, which is a strange thing, because the same person who says, yeah, no, I don't want to bother anyone, I don't need anyone's pity, and pulls away, is the same person who would absolutely help anyone else with their situation. But then they're trying, you know, people, again, everyone's willing to help, but the initial response seems to pull away.
Yeah.
And so it's overcoming that.
Yes, you know, and it's recognising what embracing that support can do for you, you know, your physical, your mental and emotional wellness, which, you know, your physical, mental and emotional wellness are, you know, a key to your, you know, to your building your immunity to cancer and also depression, you know, because the same, that pulling back and that you just spoke about, or we both spoke about, is and when you're in a depressed state, that's what you do, is you withdraw, and that's the worst possible thing for you to do, basically, because
which is amazing that that's the first instinct. The first instinct is to pull away, but the better situation is for you not.
No.
It's to reach out. It's to be out there and receiving support from the people that truly want to help you.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly right. You don't have to be, walking around with a badge on your shoulder or a sign on your back to say, I've got cancer. Sort of people that are close to you are obviously going to know. But, if you go to a hobby group and what have you, well, or a group where, you just go for the pleasure of the company and the interaction, it's very important. Well, it's like there was one of the stories, and I think it was in the book, where the neighbour kept cooking her a meal, and this particular lady that was bedridden, and she'd cook her a meal, and eventually, but it was a meal that she couldn't really eat. So eventually, just, with a bit of empowerment, she said, "Look, here's a recipe book for the things I need to eat. If you want to cook me a meal, cook me one of these." That's a case in point,
She would have been thrilled. I'm sure the neighbour would have been thrilled to receive that.
Well, she was, and also, and then the flip side of that was the receiver was able to. It was a big help to them as well.
I think the biggest part of it, I think there's plenty of social support out there, and like in your information sessions, you talk about those kinds of supports that are out there, but it's your willingness to accept them.
Yeah,
to make that decision and go, no, I am going to accept.
Yeah.
So I know how important this is. It's one of the 10 factors.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that support, it comes in many ways, in many forms, like support of the team that's looking after you, the medical team that's looking after you.
Yeah.
So, that's their job, and they want to support you.
Now, so the other factor we were going to talk about in this episode, we've actually covered this factor in another podcast, and that factor is spirituality. I think we might have covered that in season 2. But just to clarify, when we're talking about spirituality, we're not necessarily talking about church or organised religion, although, it may be, but that's not what we're talking about.
No, definitely not, Ruth. Spirituality is an individual thing, I say in my case, I was raised a Catholic, and we went to church and all those sorts of things, and my mum was a Catholic and a devout Catholic, and so, basically we were dragged along and made to go, and I went to the Catholic school, so that was another dose of church and what have you, but by the same token, I don't regret that. I'm not a practicing Catholic now and haven't been for quite a number of years, but that spiritual connection is something that for me has changed. It's not the church or whatever. It's a connection that I have with a sort of higher being or a spirit or whatever. But I know there's some,
or even yourself,
isn't
it? I notice in the worksheet that you have for spiritual connection, it does talk a lot about meditation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And, it's a connection to self. And, like that connection to self is a connection to the universe, really. And because, we're all part of that universe, it might sound woo-woo sort of stuff, but that's the reality of it.
And because spiritual connection can come from, as you would do, go out and sit on an anthill.
Yeah.
Not one that's got ants in it, but going and, sitting on a rock somewhere in the middle of the bush.
Yeah. And, like that spiritual connection, meditation, for example, like me to say, taking the time to make that spiritual connection before you start your day. We're a spiritual being having a physical existence or something like that, so.
Oh, yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah, yep. I don't think that's correctly how it's said, but the meaning's same as we're spiritual beings having a physical life, and so very much connected to that universe that's bigger than all of us and part of all of us.
And so with information sessions that Graham has about the Radical Remission, but he also has the 2-day Radical Remission workshops. And within that, you actually start down that path of identifying what spiritual connection means to you. So it's something that you may know already. It might just, be instinctively there. But if you're thinking, I don't know what that means, I don't know what that is, then this Radical Remission workshop actually starts you on that process to understand what a spiritual connection means for you.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Ruth. And the spiritual connection, well, for it to appear in every one of those interviews that Dr. Kelly's done, speaks volumes in itself. And in each and every case, they more than likely there was no two the same. And it might have been similar, but exactly the same, probably not. And, like my spiritual connection and your spiritual connection probably poles apart. But by the same token, the significance is to have that spiritual connection, be it and how you achieve that spiritual connection.
Because it's definitely an inside job.
Oh, yeah, it's like everything, like, as I say, that, how mental, emotional and physical wellness is an inside job. You can't describe it anywhere else, like when you go through the whole 10 factors, like where we started with, reason to live, that's an inside job. Intuition, inside job. Empowerment, that's an inside job. What you put in your mouth and that sort of stuff, that's a decision that you make in conjunction with possibly an expert in that space. But positive emotions, that's your job. Releasing those suppressed emotions, that's an inside job. You have to release them, and embracing social support. That's up to you to do.
Yeah.
And the spiritual connection's the same. So it's whatever you do and whatever we do, in every aspect of our lives is an inside job. And sometimes in this with this radical remission, it's been consolidated into those 10 factors, and you look at those specifically because when you stop and think about it, it's all encompassing.
And when you can look at treatment and go, well, that's an outside job. That's my my doctors and my team, but I work with them. Yeah. But then I've got the rest of it, and the rest of it is an inside job. Yeah. So while I'm getting that assistance, I can also help myself immeasurably with all of these things that you can do, and in particular these 10 factors. Yep. Now, if this information has resonated with you, or you would like to go a little deeper, then Graham, the next move would be?
Contact me, via my website, or, go to my website, rapidradicalwellness.com, and book the free 30-minute consultation and, discuss what options that best suit you, because...
And what information sessions you might have coming up, what workshops, or whether you actually want to work one-on-one with Graham. Yeah.
And either that radical remission space or the rapid transformational therapy space. But, my purpose in life is to make a positive and meaningful difference in my life, but more importantly, to make a positive and meaningful difference in your life.
Well, you do.
Thank you, Ruth.
You've been listening to Radical Remission Coach Graham Cotter. You can connect with Graham, as we talked about, on his website, rapidradicalwellness.com. And you can book a free 30-minute session with Graham if you would like, or find out about when the next workshops are coming up. Thank you so much, Graham, for letting me be a part of this. One last time, can we finish with your mantra that I love so much?
Remember, our minds respond to the words we say and the pictures we make. Change the words, change the pictures, change your life.
Thank you.